a ton of Wall Street institutional money has poured into self-storage because they realized it's a cash cow for the most part. It's recession resistant for the most part. So it's become very in vogue and very popular, no doubt.
Welcome back to the Mark Faris Experience. Today we're speaking with Joe Downs. So Joe runs a self-storage company where they actually go in and they acquire 40,000 square foot facilities. So he does it in a big way, and he's actually teaching it now as well. So he's doing the thing, and then he's teaching the thing as well to many investors on that end. And currently, he has, he's acquired 20 self-storage facilities through the years. He's a CEO and it's been successful, and it's going to be a great conversation. Joe, welcome to the show.
Mark, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to riffing with you about real estate and life and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, right on. And I was just saying, like, we're both real estate guys. We both believe in real estate. I like the multifamily. I know with you, the self-storage, and they're kind of like brothers in a way, that they're both great and they both have, their advantages. But I'm curious a little bit about your backstory. Were you always like, real estate and self-storage, this is the business, or, was there a story behind or before you getting into this particular business a number of years ago?
Yeah, the latter for sure. I mean, probably safe to say 9 years ago, maybe 8. I didn't even know what self-storage was. And I was in commercial real estate. So, if you'd asked me then what's to define it, I would have probably said something like, I don't know, those places with a lot of garage looking doors that are, usually orange or red,
Yeah.
right. Or
Yeah.
green. So, no, I learned, I had to come to terms with the fact recently, like in the last year, 2 years, that I actually, like it or not, am a serial entrepreneur. And I say it like that, hopefully in a funny way. My jokes are for me, I guess, but I, I never stopped to think about it. It was never a goal. It was just when you look backwards and you start telling the story, you realize, oh, wow, I guess, I got knocked down and got back up and figured that out. And then I got knocked down again and figured out a new way forward. And then, then this happened, and then I had to try something new. So my career started as a financial advisor.
Okay.
And my stops along the way were, I was a financial advisor. I left that to own a bar, really a bar and restaurant, when I was 29. I opened it when I was 30. Because, Mark, I don't know about, you said you're from Toronto, but I'm sure this is universal and an international feeling, but pretty much every 20, 25, 30-year-old guy feels like he should own a bar someday, right? So
That's quite the jump there from financial advisor
yeah.
to owning a bar. So
Well,
what was it that made you transition?
it's not quite the jump you think. So, and this was part of me looking back and realizing, no, you were always an entrepreneur. So I was bartending always. So I was a DJ when I was younger. Out of college, got a job as a financial advisor. But I converted from DJing to bartending, and I was a bartender for 9-10 years while I had a job. You're young and you're invincible, right? You could be out till Thursday night. It was Thursday, Saturday night. So Friday morning was the only morning I had to worry about. But you could function on 4 hours of sleep. When you're 24 years old, you can't do that anymore. You see all those gray hairs. It's not possible. But so it wasn't that big of a leap. I had been bartending for a long time, and it was the bar I bartended at that got shut down. It was a college bar, and they had to reopen it as a bar and restaurant, and they couldn't own it. So it was an opportunity for me to be the owner. I had the old owners' financial backing. I also put up a lot of money. So it didn't go out well. Let's just say that the bar that I knew how to run went well, but the business did not. So I, 11 months later was out on the street, if you will, looking for something. I'm broke now because everything I had went into it. And so now I'm broke and I got to reinvent. And fortunately I'm from Philadelphia, and, when the Eagles aren't doing well, we like to refer to Rocky. And Rocky's famous for saying, it's not how hard you get knocked down, it's about getting back up. And that was, it's the story of my life is, one failure. All right, what's next? Eyes wide open. What's the next door? You got to do what it takes. Now, so I took a job selling advertising on radio. Knew that was just you got to feed yourself and pay rent. So took that job. And it was interesting. Met a lot of interesting people. It was a talk radio station in Philadelphia, but more importantly, two of my clients that came along, and I'm skipping over part of the story, but I wanted to be in real estate. That was my destination. So I'd made that decision. But back then, Mark, there weren't podcasts like this to listen to. So kudos to you, and your listeners should be sending you thank you emails because we didn't have that. And it was, you had your own head. They had to get past whatever mental blocks that were put up. There wasn't guys like you or interviewing people like me to say, you can do this. I did it, and if I did it, you can. We didn't have that. You had maybe some guru books or something, but that was it. So I just did it the hard way, which was one of my clients came along, and it was called Real Estate Riches, and they were advertising on the radio to get people to come to a hotel for a seminar. There were no webinars back then. You had to show up in person, and then they pitched teaching people how to buy, rehab, and flip or rent, residential properties. So after time, I scraped together $5,000. That's what the course cost. And I took their course and I started. Now I'm broke, remember? So I wasn't buying anything. I was trying to find them and wholesale them. Right. But so I did that for a little bit. Then another client came along that was a high-end developer, and they were selling high-end condos. And the broker who was my client, they were advertising these on the radio as well. The broker I just became friendly with, and he said to me, like, look, and he knew I didn't want to be in radio. And he said, my buddy needs a guy like you. He's in commercial real estate, and he's doing syndications of office buildings and multifamily, but as 1031 exchanges through securities broker dealers. So he was like, you might be a fit. So I checked two boxes, which was I had a securities license for being a financial advisor, and I was a sales guy, but I didn't have a commercial real estate background. So I had to learn that part. So I did that. And then a couple of years, very successful at it, I will say. And then 2007, 8, 9 hit. And, the 1031 exchange business is pretty reliant on people selling properties to exchange. And if there's no buyers of those properties, there's no sellers, no exchange. And if you remember, nobody could get financing in 7, 8, or the end of 7, really 8 and 9. So that industry actually went from $4 billion in exchange as securities in 2006 or 7 to like $250 million in 2009. It was like, it was over. So I had to reinvent again, and ended up going to a tax lien seminar. Met who's a guy who's still my partner in not tax liens. In we buy charged off residential second mortgages from banks. So I met him. He started telling me about how he bought one as a reperforming loan in his IRA, and I was like, "What?" And he struggled to explain it to me. All I knew is he was getting a 25% yield, and I just raised $93 million at 6.5% to 7%. So I was like, there's something here. I don't know what it is yet, but there's a lot of margin to go around. So I went to another seminar on that, learned how to do that, or learned at least what they did. And then we started a business, and we were doing that for a couple of years. And then the CFPB was created in, I don't remember, 14 or 15. Obama was president. They created the CFPB.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, the Consumer Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's right. And they put illegally, I guess, because it was struck down by the Supreme Court. But they started putting regulations on banks, or at least they made penalties if banks sold debt a certain way, whatever. It was enough for the banks to say, we're not dealing with this, right? We have no control here. we're done selling. So they stopped selling for 3 years. So our distressed debt business, which we were doing really well with, we learned almost overnight is not a business. It's a nice hobby when you can play, but it's not a business that we can control. So I had to reinvent again. And I got an email one day. So I was doing other things. I was trying to rehab and flip properties to make money. Thank God my wife had a job through a few of these. Thank God my wife had, she was in pharmaceutical sales and marketing, did really well. So we survived as a family, but I had to go through these fits and starts, and so I get this email, and the tagline was real estate without tenants, toilets, and trash, or something like that, enough to get me to open it. And so I opened it. It wasn't the tagline that really got my attention. There was a line in like the middle of the email that said something to the effect of 80% of all storage facilities are owned by mom and pops. And I'm like, what? I would not. Again, I don't know anything about self-storage at this point. This is my first intro to it, this email. But I was in commercial real estate, and by this point, I was at a lot of conferences. Never saw a self-storage operator there, and I thought, well, maybe that's why. I would have guessed, and you might too, if you're not familiar with it, that most self-storage facilities are owned by Public or CubeSmart or Extra Space or Life Storage, or the names we all recognize. And it was the opposite.
What year was that where it was 80%?
Yeah.
Approximately.
That email came in probably somewhere in like 2016, right around there. That number today, because I'm sure you'll ask for an update, it depends on what you read, but I would say 60 to 70%.
Really? That's
Yeah,
still that number
still the
is
lion's share.
Yeah. Wow.
But actually the more interesting number is a subset of that number. But since then, for sure, a ton of Wall Street institutional money has poured into self-storage because they realized it's a cash cow for the most part. It's recession resistant for the most part. So it's become very in vogue and very popular, no doubt. And that put a lot of pressure up at the larger end of the spectrum, meaning the 40,000 square feet plus facilities, but not under 40,000 square feet. And that's, we can unpack that at a different point if you want. But so that was, so I get this email. I buy Scott Meyer's at home course. I loved it, but there was no way for me to make a move because they wanted me to fly to wherever their academies were. And I'm not broke, but I'm not ready to invest in, a flight, a hotel, time away. How do I even pitch this to my wife? Why this is a good idea? So a year goes by, I do nothing. And then I get a phone call. They're coming to Philadelphia with their academy. I was like, well, I'm out of excuses. I just have to drive 20 minutes, 3 days, and I'm there. And that's why I go to their academy. And day one, I'm that guy who won't stop raising his hand and asking questions. And that night I couldn't sleep. I was just blown away. And the reason for that, the reason that 80% number was so interesting to me, because of the second mortgage space I was in. The secondary market of the second mortgage space where these things are traded is like the wild, wild west. So to me, mom and pops owning the lion's share of an industry had to be wild, wild west, fragmented, dislocated, inefficient markets. And I was right. So that's why I was so excited about it. It's maybe not as fragmented, dislocated today, but I'm on the phone with sellers a few times a week of mom and pop facilities. They're 70, 75 years old, not managing the way we do, but leaving all this opportunity on the table for us. So I'm still not wrong. There was still a ton of opportunity there.
Question I have, like with your wife going through, that must have been really hard going through all the different, you know, Rocky was a great example at the beginning you gave. It's like you got hit, you just go in back at it. And then it was like this light bulb moment where you couldn't sleep, where it's like the stars connected. You were asking, you got really curious. and then you just found your thing, and everything that you learned prior to that all built you up for this one opportunity. How was it for your spouse, and what was it that kind of helped, get through that? Because I would imagine it's like, oh, here's another one. Joe's got another idea, coming, and but like, how was that getting through that period for you?
I wish I could. I've probably mentally blocked it, but this wasn't easy. But look, it wasn't. It's not like I was like an inventor. Like I've got another great idea, hon.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah,
gonna go pitch this and invest money in this. And I wasn't like fly by the seat of my pants with this is the next greatest thing. It was, well, first of all, the first time that I wasn't married when I left the financial advisor to own the bar, right? So that was squarely on me. And taking the next job was just fight or flight. Like you got to eat and you got to pay rent, right? So you had to take a job. And I was in real estate before I knew her as well. So that was more of a, if you think about it, I had 3 jobs at one point. I was selling radio. I still got another job bartending at another bar because when you're a bartender, every bartender and bars in the area and owner. So I took another job at another bar. Remember, I'm broke during this time. Like I needed that income, that bartending, that extra
yeah.
250, a week, whatever it was. And then I'm out on weekends, Saturday and Sunday morning, looking at real estate. 10 property. My goal was 10 properties every Saturday and Sunday morning. So that was all fight or flight. That was survival mode. Then I'm actually established in a commercial real estate syndication company as the national sales director. I graduated myself pretty quickly to that. So she kind of understood, like she saw income earning, right? Like
And
she saw the,
you're hustling there too. It's not like you're just kind of, that's where I think the misconception is for people. It's like, oh, it's not supported, but are you getting up like Saturday and Sunday, like the 10 properties? That's a great example. Like, are you waking up? Are you grinding? You hustling, or are you just kind of sitting all day watching
yeah,
TV? It's like just a matter of time until the start. And it sounds like there was some success along the way.
yeah, good point. She never saw me get knocked down and get back up. She never saw someone lazy, someone with fly by the seat of their pants ideas. I didn't go from real estate to a tech company idea. I didn't everything everything I've done since she's known me has been real estate
Real estate. Yeah.
related. The furthest I got from it is distressed debt, although it's debt on real estate, so it's
Yeah.
really not,
Got it.
right? So I think that probably, I've never thought about that. Great question. I should probably ask her how she survived it, but
Yeah,
um,
because
I
I know that like your spouse is such an important part to success. I find with entrepreneurs, and I find generally behind a good man, there's like not in all cases, but there's a good woman behind, and there's like a story there.
yeah
Um, that going through the grind and like when I went through my early struggle and struggles through the years is like having her there help pick me up and having those conversations, those late night conversations. I don't think that's really talked about a lot, but like for the entrepreneurs listening, I'm sure like they'll be able to relate to that. It's like, yeah, you know what? Like my my spouse is an untold under almost it's under the radar counsel, or just like a lot of it is just discernment and overall decision making, right? You're running
keeping things
scenarios.
together when
Yeah,
you're working 12 hours a day.
yeah.
In my case, look, I had, in the last 15 years, I had probably had 2 to 3 years where I made less than 50 grand, right? So I wasn't even really meaningfully contributing to the financial status of the family for a little bit. So no, you're 100% right. Like when I tell, that's what, if I'll probably never write a book, but if I were to, she would be featured heavily, if for no other reason than she carried the family financially. I mean, it's almost no stolen valor here at all. And I could say this a little bit as I grew up an army brat, but it's similar to the spouse that that stays at home and keeps the family unit together while the other spouse is off overseas, fighting a war or something. But that's hard. And they might be working too, and they're doing everything and keeping everything together. So you're 100% right. I mean, the spouse of the entrepreneur should be featured and recognized and appreciated through the entrepreneur's accolades.
Yeah, no, that's you nailed it. I think that's bang on. So Joe, going through what you went through before we start to get into the details with the self storage and some of your practices and what you're teaching as well. What were you? Do you think were some of the key things that you did to help you continue to grow and develop? And it seems like curiosity was always a part of your DNA and fabric. But was there anything else that you've done through the years that was like that really paid off to at where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it with curiosity. I tell my kids all the time, be curious, not judgmental. Um, and I am. I'm fascinated by how things work, not from an engineering standpoint. Like, you don't want me touching anything mechanical, but just how business works, or how this. We were on we were raising capital. We're doing a breakfast meeting to raise capital with one of my old partners, and we were up in Buffalo, and he arranged this meeting, and we sit down with the guy. I'm like, yeah, what do you do? And the guy's like, he runs traveling, like county fairs, not quite circuses, but like county fairs. And I was like, I'm there to pitch him my deal. And he told me that, and I was like, forget it, forget my deal. I got to learn about what you do. And it was so fascinating. So you're right. I am curious, but, you know, uh, either you're either losing or learning in life.
Mm,
And
love that.
for me, it's always, what am I going to do with learn? I can't wallow in my own shit.
Mm,
I got to learn. I have to say, all right, that sucks. What can I do differently? And I may not have the answer, but it's in the back of my head. That experience, any experience you have, good or bad, it's really the bad ones that are the better ones in the long run, because that helps forge you, not only who you are as a person, but that you said something earlier and you nailed it. You're like a podcast whisperer, Mark. But um, everything I have done before has led to where I am today, and I know that's
mm,
no shit, Sherlock. But what you don't realize, what I heard when you said that, was all of my failures, big or small, along the way, are embedded into what I'm doing today. They're constantly in the background of every decision I make. Like the bar. What went wrong there? Well, I didn't know how to run a kitchen. I trusted the chef in a who not how way, but never oversaw what was going on. Didn't learn what was going on. Didn't I couldn't have If he quit, I couldn't have run the kitchen. So I was too disconnected from it. So
mm.
one of my sayings, people always is like, what's one piece of advice that you have for people? You have to mind your kitchen. And that's my euphemism for your kitchen is your operations in any business. I don't care what business you're in. It's your operations where the sausage is made, or where things come together. There's business development, there's operations, right? I'm not an operations guy, right? I'm a front of the house, sales, CEO, visionary, but I still need to know what's going on in the kitchen, whether that
Mm.
kitchen is a storage facility or a restaurant, or, I still have my distressed debt company. We're back because Trump gutted the CFPB. They're selling loans again. I don't really run it. I have one guy run it, but I know exactly what goes on in it all the time.
This is such a good lesson because there's like this idea of like delegation is good abdication, as in like you got okay, good, but I'll see you later, like with your kitchen example. And then delegation, you don't want to be micromanaging as well. And then you like understand your operation. I think that's like most successful entrepreneurs they would refer to that. I've heard that many times. You need to understand all parts of the business. I guess the question is how deep how much time do you need to spend in kind of each department to truly, get enough so that if somebody did walk out, you're not, you don't have a major risk on that end. Like, how much is too much, where you're spending too much time and not doing, say, the rainmaking activities of, say, or CEO, the vision and accountability and strategic direction, but where you're not too much, but then you're not abdicating at the same time. What suggestions would you have for the listeners out there?
It's a great question. I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule. It probably depends on the business. But you're kind of nailing it. It's the CEO dance, right? You have to pay attention, probe, ask questions, but trust that you have the right people that are executing, and also asking the right questions of themselves and of the people that are working for them. Time what that's where I think we actually don't use traction. We basically do. We follow like the Pinnacle system, which is Traction Light. But that's where traction comes in, right? So for the CEO or any manager or leader of any department, it's that weekly touch. So maybe I can answer the question. At least weekly, you have to know what's going on. And even if you don't know what's going on positively, you have to know what the issues are. And that's what that level 10 meeting is. So it's like, what are the issues? How important are they? And who can fix them? And then as the leader, CEO, whatever, you have to determine how much you need to get involved, because you don't want to be a micromanager for multiple reasons. One, that's not good for who works for you, for them to feel micromanaged, they feel devalued, right? Two, if you're micromanaging, you're not working on the business and growing it and being the visionary. So I hope you picked up a lot of Dan Sullivan in that, but
Yeah, I got it.
but it's a balancing act, or it's the CEO dance. I think
CEO dance. I've
that's
never
a
heard
good
it
name for
that.
a book.
Yeah, I've never heard it that way. It's I've read a book called The Lazy CEO, and it's like all the different hats that a CEO needs to wear. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you're the player, and then you're the architect, and you're the engineer, and then you're the entrepreneur and the visionary. And it's like you got to go to like where the constraints are in the business and make sure that the right people have the right resources, and then being able to assess, is it the right person in the right spot on the bus, as Jim Collins
Yeah.
talks about. So the CEO dance, I've never heard it that way. So there you go. I think
Coined
that's a
here
good
first. I
explanation.
mean, before this podcast, I was on the phone with my head of acquisitions, and this is a great example. And he's calling me, "Hey, we're negotiating a deal. So should I do this? Should I send it here?" So I said, "Well, I could answer it, but now I'm micromanaging. So instead, I have to spin it around, and this is something I've had to learn, right, through leadership workshops like Strategic Coach. We say, well, these are great questions, Jack. What do you think? How would you handle it? And you have to just guide them.
Right. Yeah. That's
But I
good.
also know he's the right guy in that seat.
Yeah.
If he's not the right guy in that seat, now I have to spend more time in that seat. But now I'm looking at if I'm not developing him, right, I might have to spend more time if he's in a development stage. But if he's not the right guy, I need to protect that seat while I'm looking for the right person to fill that seat. So, but that then takes time away from being the visionary and the CEO. So it CEO dance is actually a really good name for it. But
Yeah.
and you're constantly, that could change. And that could change with a different department. He's the acquisitions guy. He doesn't manage the facility. So and we have had issues with our managers, and I have had to spend more time there. And that does slow you down when you have to do that. But that's just part of the business. I don't care what business you're in. And then we had to shore up that seat. And I think I was telling you before this pocket, we're actually making changes to that starting Q1 next year to further that, so that I can not take my eye off the ball, because I have to mind the kitchen, because the facility management is our kitchen, right? That's where it happens. But I don't need to be kept up at night wondering what's going on. We found a who, and it's a really good who, And now I can just pay attention on a weekly basis again, starting in January, instead of weekly at our well, I'll call it level 10. We don't call it that, but weekly there, and then checking in one or two more times a week on what's going on with that. What's this issue? What's that issue? Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you get the right people in place, you you should see the issues start to go away,
Yeah. Yeah.
and or be handled by the right people in place. Then they don't boil up to you.
I think that's a really good point. I found that in past years, we got the real estate sales business, and then we got the real estate investment firm where we buy the multifamily. And I found that in both cases, when there was an issue in a department, when I tried to get in and fix the processes and systems, it was like it did not go very far. Every time that it got solved is when either they got trained up. A lot of times we had to transition them out, and then when somebody else came in, they fixed it and they created the system. And that's where I think the best coaches is where there's not a lot of drama. Where there's a lot of drama, generally it's the manager. If you fix the manager, you generally, the drama disappears. And I've seen that case play out so often.
But
But it's
don't
hard.
but
It's
don't
hard.
underestimate what you did there. You created the environment for that to happen without inserting yourself into it.
Right.
And that's the key. You made sure that, like you said, you transitioned somebody out and you coach somebody up. You made sure that environment was in place for that to happen. And that's your
Mm,
job as, I'm assuming you're the
right.
CEO. That's your
Yeah.
job as the leader,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
to get in there and actually do it and
And
take it
do
on
it.
part time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was something that in scaling up at Vern Harnish, because I know, and I want to ask you this with strategic coach and Gino Wickman, traction, EOS system, and Vern Harnish, one of the things about with CEO, the number one metric for CEO to track is the percentage of seats that are filled with A players. And
Oh, I
so
love that.
across, and if you can get the more A players in, especially in your leadership roles, then you're doing a good job as a leader. Um, but to kind of continue on with this overall coaching, and there's strategic coach, EOS, Vern Harnish, scaling up, Jim Collins, Patrick like all these guys, right? They're
Yeah.
beauties. And now you've it sounds like, so strategic coach, you've dove into that a little bit more. It sounds like over the last few years. What's kind of the biggest takeaway from learning these methodologies on how to build companies and scaling up, that that you've seen the biggest fruit come from by starting to learn this and then implementing? You had mentioned level 10 was one example, but is there anything else? There's like, Mark, we introduced this and this was a huge for our company.
Yeah. Well, strategic coach has been huge for us because it starts with me personally. And I don't think people realize that it's really about you as the leader. And then you take all of what you learn to your organization. But the biggest thing I learned in that is actually covered in the book, Who Not How, but it's a book. It's not a workshop. And I'm in my third year there, and it's funny. I joke with them. I'm like, I'm slow on the uptake. I'm now implementing what I learned in year one in my
Right.
third year. It's because it's hard to implement everything right away. But because you walk out of there, you're like, this is brilliant. But now I got to go back to all the other fires I got to put out. But the funny thing about that is, if you just do what they say right away and lean into it, you'd have less fires. So I'm slow on the uptick. I admit that. Unique ability. For me, it was, um, I've never been so happy and productive since I started, and this was a journey and a process as well, started only doing things or putting myself in a position, meaning surrounding myself with either people or processes that have me only doing things that are within my unique ability. And what's that sounds really good, but what's missing from that statement is maybe the more important thing, which is not doing things that are not in my wheelhouse. Because if you, Mark, you let's say you're a great, you're a web designer. I'm not. I have built a website, by the way. It probably took me 3 days of pain and anguish. It sucked. And if you're a web designer, a professional web designer, it probably is a product you wouldn't even put out. But if you did, would take you 30 minutes. So when you think about, okay, my company needs a website, should I do it because I can? Or should I hand that, not delegate, but trust that I'm handing it to someone who is a professional? That's what the who is,
Mm.
which then gives me back 3 days to do what I'm good at, which is visionary, sales, business development, relationships. In our case, in self storage, it's talking to sellers, right? This is going back, 3 years when I started. I wasn't teaching self storage back then. We were just buying value add self storage facilities. That freed up more time for me to be on the phone doing what I'm really good at, building relationships with sellers. The last couple deals we closed were relationships I started 2 and 3 years ago
Mm.
with
Mm-hmm.
with the seller.
Right.
I've got a pipeline of those relationships now.
Yeah.
If I was doing all the other things in our company that I wasn't really skilled at, I don't think we would have as robust a pipeline. I know we wouldn't. And on top of that, when you're not good at something, you don't like it typically. There's sometimes people like to do things they're not good at, but for the
Generally
most
not.
part, I fall into the category of I'm not good at it, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So not only is the output bad, my energy's bad, and that affects everything. Right. So I have never had so much, I've never worked as many hours as I'm working right now and enjoyed what I'm doing so much because all I do is what I like doing. If the only way it would be different or I could be happier maybe is if I owned like the Philadelphia Eagles
Well,
or
keep going.
I would take the Phillies. I would go
Yeah.
Phillies too.
Well,
Some sort of sports franchise because
yeah.
I don't think I would have made it as I was a pretty good athlete in my day, but I don't think I was a professional level athlete except for rowing. I did win a national championship rowing, but my clearly I was never going to play a professional sport. So owning a franchise might be the only thing that would make me happier than what I'm doing right now. Because what am I doing right now? I get to talk to sellers and build relationships. I now get to teach people. I love to give back. I love to teach. I didn't know I did. I guess I kind of always did because I like to be helpful, but I get to stand on stage and watch people's faces light up and eyes go to the left or right or whichever way it goes when you're accessing like the holy shit part of your brain, like mine did when I was sitting at the Self Storage Academy for the first time in Philadelphia. I get to partake in that. I get to have those conversations with these people. I get to do podcasts with you. I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing now that I embraced only 90% of the time doing things that are within my unique ability that I like to do.
Yeah. That's so great. And when you're enjoying what you're doing, you're having fun doing it, you naturally get better at it. That's
And it's
when,
not work. It doesn't
yeah.
feel like work.
Yeah. That's really good. Really great insight there, 100%. I love that, the unique ability there. Get clear on where you get energy from and double down on the things that we'll say drive business. And it's interesting from a unique ability standpoint. That could be something from you might like marketing, or you might like the accounting side,
Accounting.
like where, yeah. Right.
There are
It's like,
accountants that love going home when the penny matches the penny on the left matches the penny on the right. They're fulfilled. You and I'm guessing definitely me, would be like, first of all, they wouldn't match. And second of all, I don't know. It's just not me.
yeah, yeah. This is good. It's really good, and then that's where it's like getting A players to take the rest of the spots so that you can double down on that more. It's such a good. There's a book called "Buy Back Your Time" by Dan Martell. I'm not sure if you've read that, but the book talks about hiring people to buy back more of your time to do the thing that you can actually double down on. That's even going to help drive your business at a higher leverage point. but the way that Dan Sullivan labels it and how you communicated that, the unique ability. And I like as well and how you highlighted the fact it's not just doing your unique ability, it's not doing everything else. And I think that's where saying it relates back to Steve Jobs. The quote he gave is like, I was more proud about the things I didn't do that
Didn't do.
we didn't do than the things that we did do.
Yeah.
And you got to get really good at saying no, right? That's so good. There's so much there that you can unpack for the listeners, or that the listeners can unpack by just going back and re-listening to it. Um, to talk a little bit, Joe, about the self storage. Like, why self storage? The business. How do you find the relationships? You dove into that about building relationships with mom and pop. Why should somebody invest in self storage? And what is it that's really grabbed you about the investment?
Oh, jeez. Why self storage? It's an industry that's not going away. It's recession resistant. I love it for folks that are in a W-2 looking for a side hustle, or um, someone like me back in the day that was in residential real estate who, and don't, this is not a knock against it, please. I actually invest. I have friends that are operators in multifamily, and I invest in them. I believe in multifamily, and I love it as an investment. I just don't want to operate it. But for folks that are going through the real estate progression, who might own a couple single families, and they're looking at, all right, what's the next step in my progression? Well, it's, I own 10 single families. Do I buy another 10, or do I buy a 10 unit building? Right.
Mm,
What people don't realize is that self storage is an option for that type of investor and or the W-2 person, because we're a business, and we're a business that operates on commercial real estate. So we're both, which means we get to use, and a lot of our students use, the SBA to acquire properties. So in multifamily or retail, or small bay flex is in vogue now, and that's actually, I really like that too. It's kind of like self storage adjacent, but you can't use the SBA because you're not a business. What does that mean to you? Well, just if you look at $1 million transaction, 20 unit building for $1 million, a 20 unit apartment building for $1 million, or I don't know, a 100 unit, 50 unit, doesn't matter, self storage facility for $1 million, I can get 90% financing using the SBA. You're probably looking at 75%. So right there, the down payment, there's a delta of 150,000. Let's assume we have the same closing costs. In addition to that, we've got CapEx items, deal by deal. But if I'm going to generalize, multifamily apartments probably going to be more. We have metal boxes, mostly gravel driveways. Improvements, physical improvements for us are like more cameras and lighting, some fresh gravel where it's tired, maybe some bollards on the corners, and make sure the gate's working. In an apartment building, we're, what we're doing. I mean, we're spending X amount per unit, right? So we just don't have the capital intensity requirement that
mm,
other businesses have. So I just think the bar is lower, the barrier to entry is lower. And then
mm,
when you factor in that we can manage by the month because we have monthly contracts, which that's another reason why it's so recession resistant. Not the only reason. It's really because it's we do well in great markets and bad in recessions, because when people downsize, they need storage. When they get divorced, they need storage. When life events, people need storage. Or when they're doing well, they consume a lot and they need storage.
mm,
So it's really, we work it at both ends. In addition to that, I don't know how old you are. I'm 52, which means I'm Gen X. My generation uses the penetration rate or consumption rate, or however, what do you want to put it, from my generation of self storage is 10%, which is actually the national average. About
mm.
10% of households use self storage. The next generation, it's 30%. And the one after that is expected to just use it as part of a way of life.
Yeah,
Right?
units are getting smaller. They're living, in smaller units, which is that this is a real thing, and affordability is another real thing, right? So
Yeah.
they can live rather than buying something bigger, they can get something cheaper.
But they still
And
want all the same stuff. So they just store that stuff in storage.
Joe, it's interesting. I've heard this about storage before. It's like a monkey that grabs something in a jar, the jar. So they put their hand in and they grab it, and their hand gets stuck in because they don't want to let go of what they have in order to get their hand out. So their hand's stuck in the jar,
That's a
right?
great analogy. I haven't heard that
Right.
one.
Yeah.
I always tell the like the gym membership. I won't name a name because I don't want to get in trouble, but it doesn't matter. Just pick a gym, right? You ever try to cancel a gym membership?
Yeah. Horrible. Actually, it's funny you say that because this is probably the same one. I had a year ago. I had it was a horrible experience canceling, and they're like, you got to mail like physical mail into this address, and took months. And finally, I was like, I got let go. When we signed up, my wife wanted to sign up for the JIT for that particular. I'm like, okay, I'm coming in, and we're gonna make sure that he can. And I had her write it down, like canceling. This is exactly what. And so she's like, oh no, like we've changed our policy. I'm like, okay, just write it down. A few weeks goes by. My wife, she's like, she found another gym and she wanted to cancel, and she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go in and see. She's like, and they canceled it because what I ended up happening, I think there were some legal debates and whatnot, but I'm going down a whole rabbit hole here. But the point is that yeah, you get stuck and there's these hard cancellation, which
Well, so it hits your credit card bill
yeah,
if you look at it. And by the way, the national ones, there's a reason they cost so little because it's not about
got
selling.
it.
It is about selling memberships.
It's getting you in the door, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you're on auto pay and you're going to be on auto pay for years.
yeah, that's right.
Right. So when's a good time to cancel your gym membership? First of all, you have to go in, or I've never heard you have to mail, but you have to go in person. Then they try to down or upsell you, and then they shame you. Right. So, but that's if you go in. If you don't, it's, you know what, your spouse, you got to cancel that. Oh no, you know what? I need to get back to the gym.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm going to start using it again. I just paid it for the month anyway. I'm going to go, or I'll go next weekend and cancel, or this or that. There's never a good time to cancel, and it's a shameful experience. Self storage, you say you pay in the whenever you pay. All right, we just paid. I can't believe we're still paying. The argument happens. So at some
yeah,
point, that's how it starts. There's an argument. We got to get rid of this self storage facility, this unit. We're paying $100 a month for. What's in there? I don't even know what's in there. It's your mother's crap. It's my father's crap. Whatever. So when's a good time to move out? You just paid, so you got 3 more weekends, right? So all right, well, little Johnny's got a game next Saturday, so we'll go
right,
the following one. Oh, it's raining that. Well, oh shoot, tomorrow we're supposed to move everything out. Well, where's it going? Where are we going to get a truck? We got to rent a truck now. We got to
right.
do this, that. What are we going to do with the stuff? Right? So there's just never a good time to move out of self storage.
Yeah, and memory box is like you don't want to get rid of the memory box,
Yep.
right? I've had the debate with Joanne. I was like, "That's what my memories are like trophies when I was a kid." And she's like, what do you need your trophies?" Like
Yeah.
the ribbons. Like I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't
And
really
look,
want to throw them out.
it's not the whole business, but
Yeah,
that's part of the
got it.
stickiness of the business.
Yeah, I got it. So let me ask you, Joe. You go in and you buy one of these facilities. How do you um, I've been in a deal where I invested prior to us launching Faris Residences, our brand and our apartments. And part of us and our success is because we've the customer service side on the real estate sales. We've taken that, we'll say, a key attribute into the customer service. So we like that. We like dealing with people. It's a strength that we've had. So, how do you ensure, Joe, that whatever you're buying, that you're not going to have a large competitor come in right across the street, where all of a sudden your competition is really high? You have new deliveries hit the market. Maybe there's a brand new build, or maybe there's something else that comes in across the street. How do you mitigate that to ensure that there's going to be demand for your units?
I'll give you a real life example. We owned a facility in Lakeland, Florida, and it was one of our best facilities. It was humming. It was Lakeland's a nice little area. A lot of growth going on there. We were operating the hell out of this facility, always 95+% occupied, doing really well, except for the damn insurance in Florida. Keep going up 30% a year. It's driving us nuts. But besides that, we subscribe to a service called Store Track. There's two, Store Track and Track IQ, and I can't remember which one because this is a detail I don't get involved in, but it doesn't matter. One of them alerts us to, it's tied into the counties, and it alerts us to, and or if it doesn't alert us, this is part of a process that you do once a quarter, twice a year, no less than twice a year. You look at your facilities and you look at the counties and say, what's in the permitting process? So we were alerted or we looked, doesn't matter. But we discovered in Lakeland, this is 2 years ago, we discovered there was 300,000 square feet coming in the pipeline from, institutional type players, REITs. And they were going to be opening, this is, I said 2 years ago, I think they were going to be opening right at our 5 year, or right around our 5 year mark, where we would have a decision to make. Do we refi or sell? When 300,000 square feet comes to that was going to make a big splash in the market.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be in that refi or sell, meaning valuation scenario, when 300,000 new square feet of supply is hitting the market and they're going to tank rates, which means our occupancy is going to drop.
Yeah.
Which is going to bring our NOI down and our value with it. So we didn't want to be in it when that was happening. We didn't achieve the goal that we had for that property. Our goal was an 18% IRR for our investors. We played defense and got out early because we paid attention to what was coming. So we got out at like a 13.9, or call it a 14% IRR over a 3-year hold versus what would probably, well, wouldn't have been, but before the supply was coming, it would have been likely an 18 or better over 5 years.
Got it.
So to answer your question with a real life example is, you can either manually check the counties about what competition's coming. It's public record, or in a lot of cases now with, more and more counties, most counties are online now. There's still a few rural counties that aren't, but for the most part, counties are online, and we know what's coming, what applications are in process. We did get hurt by it once by a county that wasn't online. And when we checked, there was nothing in the pipeline, and we didn't check for another year. And in that time, we had missed it. Somehow we missed it. Oh, you know what it was? It was online, but we didn't manually check as a backup.
Got it. Yeah.
And this service missed it. So I think a Life Storage opened up and really hurt us for like the first 6 months.
Yeah.
We recovered.
Yeah.
But that was one of those like,
well,
you got to be kidding me. How did we miss this?
Well, they do these concessions where they come on just to get the lease up happening, right? And then they'll jack up the rates, later. But that's a real thing. One of the deals that I invested prior to us launching was they didn't factor that in, and a lot of new inventory came, and they paused distributions, and it's like it's really impacted that deal, and it was like, for me, it was like, okay, I can kind of learn from that, and we're big on that. We track permitting, but it's a good suggestion in regards to from an alert standpoint, and from making sure that you're continually checking that so that you have that. I think that's for the listeners out there. It's like that's a real deal, especially when you're investing in larger deals. It can really impact your overall margin in a big way very quickly.
And along those lines, and this is more for due diligence, that's an operational, that's part of due diligence, but then that's also an operational task to protect what you're doing so you know what's going on. But another one we learned the hard way is taxes. What happens with taxes on sale, or if not on sale, when do they get reassessed?
Yeah.
So we've been the unfortunate victim of, oh, here's your new tax bill. Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
When we asked you what happens with the taxes, that's not the answer we got.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's good.
that's something that you have to, and it doesn't matter what the asset class is. You have to know how that county treats, or state, or however, whatever the municipality is, how they treat the taxes, at sale, and if not at sale, what's the frequency and what's the expectation? Because you got to
Yeah.
build it into your performa.
100%. Yeah, taxes and insurance are the two large above your debt servicing. I mean, that's one of your largest. Those are your largest payments. We've actually been really successful. We use Ryan Tax Consulting. So they'll come in and they'll give like a high and low, and in regards to taxes upon closing. But then we'll also hire them to go in and advocate to lower taxes and create the case for it, and then they'll take a percentage of the lowering. And that's all gravy. You underwrite that, but it's an easy one to miss, especially if it's somebody that's not doing it full time, or they didn't learn that lesson the first time. And so those are really good tips. I think that's actually practical for any real estate purchase. You're buying a single family property, right? It's like, yeah, taxes are going to probably go up, and it's like if you're so tight on your numbers, like you got to know that stuff and be willing and able to look after it.
For sure.
All right, so Joe, this is a great conversation. I went a little longer than I thought. It was so much. It was great. I have three last quick questions here,
Yep.
quick answers, kind of rapid fire. Then we're going to wrap up. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked about a lot of different books, but which one book has made the biggest impact in your career?
Oh, and Mike, well, all right, I'm not going to say who, not how, because we already said that one. I'll tell you what, I just finished, and I'm going to listen to it again. I love audiobooks. I'm going to listen to it again. Be Your Future Self Now, which is in line with two of the other books you already mentioned. It's a Ben Hardy. Um, Holy cow, that is a mental game changer.
Awesome. Very cool. Second question, three words that best describe you.
Integrity, loyalty. Is trust too close to integrity?
Yeah, no, trusting. Yeah,
That
no,
works. All
yeah,
right.
I think you nailed it there.
Should I
That's
have
good.
should I have said handsome? No,
You could
probably not.
say that if you
Probably
want.
not.
I mean, this
Probably
is your
not.
game.
I got a
All right.
face for radio. We'll stick with those three.
Final question here. What final advice would you have for the entrepreneurs listening today?
Well, I already gave it. All right, so I won't. You already got the mind your kitchen. I'll give you the very, very current one, because I am leaning heavily, heavily into AI. If you are not, and I don't mean paying attention, I mean adopting it now in every aspect of your life, you are falling behind big time, and it's happening quickly.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. And you can actually now you can hire consultants that will come in and they'll actually implement these systems, the AI into your companies. Um, I 100% agree, Joe. It's like you think about ChatGPT, like it wasn't that long ago. I remember when I first went on, I'm like, oh, that wasn't that long ago. Now it's like almost every day I'm on it. And so people are adopting it really quick and they're relying on it. So I think that's such good advice.
Start using Gemini. Gemini is now the top model, and it's not going to go backwards. They're not going to catch it, because Google has Chrome and YouTube. It's got all the data, and they have all the data centers and the power. So ChatGPT, Sam Altman just he just sent out a message to 5 alarm fire to everybody. Like, they're in trouble.
Okay, right on. Good insight. What's the best way, Joe, that the listeners, if they want to reach out, learn a little bit more about, maybe your next deal, or maybe learn a little bit more about self storage? What's the best way they can learn more?
I'm always happy to receive emails. Joe at belroseam.com. That's BELROSE. A is an asset, M is a management.com. If they want to, I don't get a lot of emails. I offer it, but if it's too intimidating to email me and you want to learn about self storage, there's two other things you could do. You could go to the selfstorageacademy.com and you could register to learn more there. And I'm not sure when this will air, but at some point when it does, I'll be in the middle of a YouTube series called the Storage 100 on the Storage Mastermind channel, and that's free. And there's doing 106 straight days of self storage videos. Not all of them live. Why
Amazing.
106? Because that's how it broke down. But
that's your goal. Very cool. Well, Joe, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, right on. And thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel and maybe share it with another entrepreneur that you think could benefit from it. If you do want to learn more about multifamily, I mean, there's self-storage. Joe's a great resource there. If you want to learn a little bit more about multifamily, you can go to fulloutinvesting.com. There's a video and a sample deal on there as well. That's fulloutinvesting.com. And just remember, guys, the fastest way to build wealth is to grow your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.